But when you look at somebody who is actually a theistic Satanist, you look at a number of religious organizations that call themselves like the Temple of Set, or you talk about the Satanic Temple, those who are crucial in bringing forward these statues of Baphomet in the public square, and of course the Arch of Baal, where they tell you, oh, the Arch of Baal is a representation of peace and freedom, when in reality it's a representation of sexual orgies, promiscuity, and baby killing. And this is exactly what they brought up during the whole Kavanaugh-Ford debates, or the hearing, is whether or not Brett Kavanaugh was a sexual predator, and what his positions will be once he's confirmed as judge, or as a Supreme Court justice. That once he's there, what is he going to do with the idea of reproductive freedom, as they call it? It's all about abortion. It's all about baby killing. It's all about sex. It's all about homosexual sex, the devil's triangle, all these buzzwords that people like Sheldon Whitehouse were just so happy to basically parade around the hearing and to talk about. And this was something that really made me feel uncomfortable, because this certainly smacked of a lot of occult buzzwords.
There are these anti-man, hyped up, Soros-funded women screaming and howling like there's an island of Medusas or something, or harpies fighting over the one eye. And the way they're going, F you to Orrin Hatch, we bleeped it out. And he just says, grow up, while they're saying F you. And they go, how dare you speak to a woman as such? They're like going back to ancient England or something, where, the total chivalry of the not even speaking to a woman unless spoken to or whatever. They're going back to this, I guess, even Elizabethan, where open the door for me and I wear white gloves and you do what I say. But no, they're just screaming harpies, F you, F that, rape, rape, rape. And then he's like, grow up, how dare you? The polls show it. This has backfired on him big time. Clyde Lewis joins us for the balance of the next 2 hours of Ground Zero Radio, weeknights, right before Coast to Coast AM comes on. And so I guess that's like 10 o'clock at night. I've been on there many times, or listened to it many, many times. And so Clyde Lewis is here, groundzeromedia.org, while he's still there, at Clyde Lewis, there on Twitter. But I wanted to get him back on to talk about currently what's going on, the hysteria, 51-49 for cloture, left the Senate. They're going to vote tomorrow at around 5 o'clock Eastern. We're going to be here covering it in an internet-only transmission. We'll send it on satellites to radio and TV, but it's going to be commercial-free, basically. So we'll have some promos, the front and the back. We're going to have just live coverage an hour before the vote, right through the vote. We're going to have crew on the ground in D.C. with live feeds. So be ready for all of that tomorrow as well at Infowars.com and Newswars.com live coverage. But, Clyde, this segment, let's get into the general climate. The Democrats calling for civil emergency. COG, you're an expert on that. And then I want to next segment get into your prediction of ricin, your prediction of a bio attack you've written about, you've talked about, and why you thought it was about to happen and has now happened, and what you think's going on there. Great to have you with us.
It's great to be here, Alex. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, let's dive into it. I mean, what is your take on Kavanaugh? What is your take on just the hysteria, the calls for violence against Republicans? I mean, I know you're kind of like I am, kind of a nonpartisan guy, but this is really scary.
Yeah, it is really scary. And I was actually last night talking about something called the Satan bomb. And what I talk about is the idea of this country leaving its morals aside and literally just throwing itself on the altar of evil for the sake of putting forward an agenda. And this is how desperate people are. And that's it's really sad to see this. I had said that the Arch of Baal, which was this Palmyra arch that was the 3D printed by a digital archaeology company, had been erected on the day before the Judicial Senate hearings, and the idea that perhaps what this arch represents was the very thing that they were discussing actually in those hearings, such as, well, it was the Arch of Baal in Palmyra, which is in Syria, that was actually brought down by ISIS. And this group decided they wanted to make a replica of it. They wanted to tour it. They put it all over. They first sent it to New York. They sent it to Trafalgar Square. After it was erected in Trafalgar Square in England, someone decided to erect a demon called Pazuzu, which of course is a familiar demon to those people who see the movie The Exorcist. They erected Pazuzu on the Queen's Library just down the street from this arch. And I was thinking to myself, how peculiar is it that they do this? This is some sort of priestcraft or black magic that's being done to.
And I totally agree. Let me just stop you there because I know we're going to go here. But the globalists are obsessed with ancient Babylonian, Assyrian occultism. And when you talk about that particular demon, they translated that in Ghostbusters into Zool, and that's actually the one that they're worshiping in the movie. And they make a joke, and it brings your destruction, and it brings world destruction, and they envision Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and so that's what pops up. But that's what these globalists are into. And it's funny you raise that because you've had the major witchcraft events with thousands of witches trying to kill Trump and even Hollywood involved. So they really believe they're getting empowered by something.
Well, and you're the pioneer, actually, with actually revealing the horned owl at the Bohemian Grove, which, of course, is a representation of Moloch. And Moloch, of course, is also another way of describing the horn god Baal. And what Baal represents significantly is or specifically, what it represents is sexual perversion, baby sacrifice, all these things that they did. It was a horn god that they would put a child in the arms of this horn god, and they would pull a lever, and then the baby would drop into a fire, much like what you see at the cremation of care.
And let's be clear, when the Jews got captured in different captivities by the Assyrians and then by the Babylonians and others, they then later adopted some of this, at least some classes in it. And so that's where you get all of this Babylon mystery religion coming into Christianity, coming into Europe. I mean, that's just the archaeological history of that. So Ghostbusters seems like a funny movie, but what they're actually showing you, in an archetype is actually what the devil worshippers are into. Right.
And so when you have an arch being set up before the testimony given with Ford Kavanaugh, and you know that everything they're talking about has to deal with sexual perversion, abortion, all of these things, baby killing. I mean, it all seems to come together. And what's interesting is one of the first points that were made was, I think it was Sheldon Whitehouse said something to the effect, he said, "Do you know what the Devil's Triangle is?" And of course, we all know that there's this place out in Bermuda or whatever. But no, they were referring to what would be a sexual menage a trois, if you will. And I just thought, wow, that seals it right there. They're talking about all of this, including some sort of perversion.
Sex magic.
Yes, sex magic. It's exactly what it is. It is sex magic. And what is even more frightening is that the ricin attacks also has a sort of a occult significance, as when ricin was sent to the president, sent to Ted Cruz's office, it was done on a day where the moon had entered into Gemini, and the twins' names are Pollux and Castor. Ricin is made from castor beans. And I thought that was also significant. And also the day they apprehended the suspect, William Clyde III, from Logan, Utah, there was an incident in Georgia where someone had beheaded 12 goats and their heads were floating in the Chattahoochee River in Georgia. So a lot of weird devil type of activity going on.
And again, it all sounds like insane because we're not insane, but the globalists are into the occult. Clyde Lewis is an amazing investigator. We're going to come back and look at the riots and attacks straight ahead. Infowars.com, newswars.com. Tomorrow's news today.
Nimble little minx, isn't she?
We better go full stream.
Aim for the flat top! Went so hard? We neutralized it. You know what that means? A complete particle reversal. We have the tools, we have the talent. It's Miller time.
Ray, this looks extraordinarily bad.
Oh, no.
What? Look out!
Now we're showing you this, and we're going to pull up the part I had on that YouTube over there, where it shows the archway, and it's an acrylic archway in Ghostbusters, and then it shows the pyramid behind it. And if you go to Syria, that's what they actually built. And this was a gateway they believed that the devil came through. And they called it Zuzu or Zool. So you go see Ghostbusters, you're like, oh, it's a movie, it's made up. What is this? I'm going to come in there, I'm going to pull it up myself. It's all right. But I didn't even know Clyde Lewis would, there it is, would go to this. Now let's pull up the arch the Democrats just rebuilt again. Because when you understand they're crazy, they believe they're getting this evil power. And they see Kavanaugh that's anti-abortion and Trump and all this pro-human stuff. That's why they're flipping out. That's why they're going crazy. And so it's very astute that you brought this up. Because look, I'm not into the occult. I don't believe in all this stuff. They do. Like Soros is admittedly into all this spirit cooking and Aleister Crowley stuff. So, Clyde, I'm glad you brought all this up because this is really central, and we can make jokes about it, and I make jokes about it, but it's not funny. They're at Bohemian Grove, the Republican, a lot of the Republican leadership, not anymore, more and more they don't go, are there worshiping, you know, they call it an owl, call it a bull, doesn't matter, that has a platform where they burn a kid, and they say, this is Moloch. And they go, oh, you're an idiot, Jones. Moloch is a bull. It doesn't matter. They call it an owl. It doesn't matter. The point is they take it deadly serious. I've been there. I've covered it. When I went to Bohemian Grove in 2000, I didn't believe it was actually going to happen. I thought it was made up, but it was real, and they were taking it deadly serious. So, Clyde Lewis, I want to get into all the other big subjects next segment, but this segment, what's driving this occultism? Because it's real. I mean, and occultism is expanding. What do you think's behind it?
Well, there have been a lot of polls lately that have said that a lot of young people today are more into secularism. They're looking to science to find the answers to a lot of spiritual questions. And this is something that I think is quite disturbing, because what this is we have failed in a lot of ways, I think. We have failed in teaching our children a lot of things regarding spirituality, teaching our children a lot of things that, put them in a position to be, believers in God, or at least having a spiritual sense. But the spiritual sense is completely destroyed. And this is something they're grooming Generation Z for. And I said this, I said, the future isn't about you and me, it's about Generation Z. And they know this. They know that if they can get them while they're young, and having teachers go in and giving them the globalist oratory and all the things they do, they know they're going to have these kids prepared for accepting this new world order, which would be a new world order, not just in in government, but in religious beliefs and a number of other things that they're going to be, trying to push on people. And so a lot of kids, a lot of young people today are turning to the occult. And this is something that, in fact, I think if you read The Open Conspiracy, if you read The New World Order, these are books by H.G. Wells, who was a fiction writer, but he said, since he was a Fabian socialist, he said, that's the agenda. The agenda is going to be winning over the young people, having them fight for this, and doing so by grooming them and changing their views on everything from government to religion.
And again, they're erecting satanic temples all over the country. They're doing all this. They go, oh, Satanist, we're just into libertarianism and human empowerment. But that's not what real Satanism is. Real Satanism is about total domination over reality and making other people submit to your will. It's not about empowering individuals' wills.
Well, I mean, you've got a number of different, I guess you could call them groups of Satanists. You have LaVeyan Satanists, which say...
Yeah, you got people claiming they're Satanists that really aren't. That's what they're trying to act like shocking. But well, tell me what you think a real Satanist is versus a Luciferian.
Well, Luciferians are kind of Illuminati type individuals who are looking for knowledge, and they use Lucifer as the symbol for knowledge and enlightenment. When you're looking at Satan, however, the fallen one, there are people who use Satan as an icon of basically atheism, saying, well, I don't believe in God or the devil. And so they call themselves Satanists, for lack of a better term. What they really are, secularists and hedonists and nihilists. But when you look at somebody who is actually a theistic Satanist, you look at a number of religious organizations that call themselves like the Temple of Set, or you talk about the Satanic Temple, those who are crucial in bringing forward these statues of Baphomet in the public square, and of course the Arch of Baal, where they tell you, oh, the Arch of Baal is a representation of peace and freedom, when in reality it's a representation of sexual orgies, promiscuity, and baby killing. And this is exactly what they brought up during the whole Kavanaugh-Ford debates, or the hearing, is whether or not Brett Kavanaugh was a sexual predator, and what his positions will be once he's confirmed as judge, or as the Supreme Court justice. That once he's there, what is he going to do with the idea of reproductive freedom, as they call it? It's all about abortion. It's all about baby killing. It's all about sex. It's all about homosexual sex, the devil's triangle, all these buzzwords that people like Sheldon Whitehouse were just so happy to basically parade around the hearing and to talk about. And this was something that really made me feel uncomfortable, because, this certainly smacked of a lot of occult buzzwords. We're calling it twilight language, if you will, just basically spreading the hidden agendas through words.
I totally agree. And let's come back into the hard subject. I like Trump. He's a good guy. His energy's positive. He's trying to fix things. He's trying to give Christians freedom. But Kavanaugh's a Bush minion and a Karl Rove minion, and they're all skull and bones. And you get into that area of the East Coast, the rest of it, Kavanaugh's got a pretty good voting record. But I'm going to be honest here. Devil's Triangle is not a drinking game. It is menage a trois. So let's look at it. What's really going on with Kavanaugh? Could he be the ultimate Trojan horse? We'll be right back.
Are you a god?
No.
Then
All right, if you just joined us, I did not mean to get into the occult today. I did not mean to get into all this, but Clyde Lewis is a big syndicated host, probably, 400 stations? Correct me if I'm wrong. Right before George Norrie every night on Premier Radio Network. Heard him for years, been on the show. And I know he predicted ricin attacks that can be grown on castor beans. I also read they can grow it on rice. But the point is, and then it happened. And then he gets into how it's part of a larger occult ritual. There was a crazy guy when I was a kid poisoned the treaty oak they signed the Texas Constitution on with a bunch of poison because he thought he'd get satanic power out of it. I don't believe in this stuff. These crazies do. And occultic activities are exploding. Now, I think Brett Kavanaugh overall has a really good, strict constructionist, constitutional background. And so I don't think he's a bad guy. And I don't want to have even wars with the old establishment because the libertarian Renaissance movement is defeating them. I want to just move past it. The Clinton stay-behind network, though, is still there with Soros. That's why I'm at war with them, because they're still in power to a certain extent. But you hear about Devil's Triangle. That is a drinking game, the creator of it said. And so when I brought up the Kavanaugh thing, it's the Democrats invoking that. But I think it's fair to also bring up Skull and Bones, the Bushes, the fact that Kavanaugh was brought in under Bush. And that's why Trump brought him in, thinking, well, he's got a pretty good voting record as a conservative. He'll back the president. But the Republican blue bloods like him too. And then even that they went after. But I think they miscalculated because people know who Kavanaugh is. So I think Kavanaugh's a good guy. I think he'll be confirmed tomorrow. I back that. But Clyde Lewis, also pulling back from this, though, there are some people out there saying, hey, wait up here. He's got neocon connections. Well, it doesn't matter now. I mean, we know the Democrats don't want him, so that's a positive thing. But what do you think?
Well, I think that, we ought to always say to ourselves that it's not about the worst of two evils or the best of two evils. We always seem to deal with evil. And it just, I guess the intent or what is eventually going to happen with this. I would say that it's certainly, if he does get confirmed, which I think he will too, I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on him to be ever mindful of how he's going to be looking over his shoulder. He's going to be having to play the game, so to speak. And that's what really worries me, is that the game will have to be played and certain compromises will have to be made. Now, this will be, this will be done because that's how it's done in Washington. I mean, if the government has something happen that's peculiar or weird, it's because they planned it that way. And that is something that I think a lot of people need to understand. It was FDR that said that. He said, well, if it happens in government, it's because we planned it. And it just seems to me that it seems to me that things seem to be going as planned. And it just seems like a very interesting plan, bit by bit, play by play. See, I see patterns. And I'm like you. I believe this, that it's not what I believe as far as the occult is concerned. It's what they believe. And so if they believe it and they practice it, and they like their little medieval dramas with worshiping owls and jumping around naked in front of an owl in the Bohemian Grove, and if they like their little arches, and if they like their little demonic hand signs, and if they like their Twilight language like Devil's Triangle and other things, you know that there are people, high-ranking people in positions that certainly do these types of rituals. They have this type of affination for, like you say, Babylonian secret school, secret societal Satan stuff. And I've seen that all the time. I see it all the time. I mean, it was, of course, some of my first exposure to it was from Spy Magazine and from you. So, I mean, the triggering of the Bohemian Grove meme is certainly right here and now. Now, I don't know, is Kavanaugh a bonesman? I didn't really know if he was or he wasn't.
No, I don't think he's a bonesman. I just think it's reasonable, as some listeners, said, hey, look, Roger Stone wrote articles about him, 80-something days ago saying, look out, we want Barrett, not him. Whatever. The point is he's got a pretty good voting record. Let me ask you this. And I'm going to play a clip actually from The Good Shepherd about Skull and Bones that Robert De Niro produced that Matt Damon's in. It was actually a pretty accurate movie. Why do you think the establishment hates Trump so much?
Because he's not part of that system. It was like what Newt Gingrich says. He hasn't gone through the rituals. He hasn't gone through the hazing process. He was a man who does his own thing, who sets his own rules. He doesn't bow or answer to any secret societal mayhem. He may know of it, but he certainly doesn't know how to deal with it, I don't think, as much as the others do. They know how to deal with the secret handshakes and hand signs and symbols. It's funny because
he just blows past all that. His secret sign is the economy doing well.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you read any postmodern philosophy, like by Jean Baudrillard, who said that we're living in times where symbols mean more than reality itself. And it's because consciously and subconsciously, we respond to these symbols. That's why, you can take a swastika into the Eastern world and they'll see it as a symbol of peace. You tilt it one way and it turns into a sign of Nazism. You take a cross, you look at it and you say, oh, that represents God. You turn it upside down, it represents the devil. People understand these signs and symbols. They know the numbers. If you say 666, immediately they say, oh, it's the mark of the beast. We have been, actually, this is wired into our DNA, these symbols and signs. And so if you see them and you're aware of them, it basically sends red flags. If you don't know about them, it still sends red flags, because on a cellular level, the body and the mind and the soul responds to ancient symbolism.
That's right. And let's explain that. These evil groups have taken over every major power symbol and turned it around for their control. So why does Chelsea Clinton hundreds of times photo with upside down crosses? Why do they do this? Why are they into these dark forces? Because they're going against the countervailing wisdom and force of humanity to succeed and empower and be loving. They want to countervail that and control it, so they have to try to hijack it and then do really wicked things, they believe, to destroy their soul. They don't know that's happening, so that they can get closer to being like anti-human. I mean, that's really what's happening. And once they're done, people like Bill Clinton, Hillary, are these robots. People that I know that know them, they're just these hateful, unhappy robots that just go around grasping like zombies. I mean, it's horrible. But they believe that's enlightenment.
Well, I heard a definition once of what a monster is, and it's a very simple description. A monster is a human being who doesn't care. And that's how you become a monster. You just become, you don't care. And what is the whole purpose of the cremation of care? We release from ourselves any responsibility. We release from ourselves any care of
You're getting rid of the conscience in a black magic ritual to take the metaphysical, reap what you sow law of the universe and pass it on to a child, which is the very essence of hardcore black magic.
And the definition of a vampire is a vampire that robs you not only of your blood, but of your virtue. And that is what is at stake.
And of your seed. Because it's one thing to suck somebody's blood or their money or their power, but if you kill their kids, if you take their line, now that's real power.
Right. It's the idea that if you can eliminate progeny. I mean, what was the whole purpose of the Garden of Eden? The Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve ate of the fruit, it was, we want to corrupt the DNA of mankind because we look at them as abnormal monkeys.
And that's the true satanic ritual. Clyde Lewis is so smart. We'll be right back with him. We'll get into more political stuff and take your calls next hour. But the groundzeromedia.org, amazing. At Clyde Lewis at Twitter. You can tune into tonight, obviously, 10 o'clock Central, right before George Norrie. So we'll be right back on the other side, though, to get more into this. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back live with Clyde Lewis. Next hour, we're going to open the phones up on Brett Kavanaugh. Will he be confirmed? What do you think about the occult? All of it. But here's the thing. The hidden exists. The establishment being involved and obsessed with the occult is a fact. And so why is that? I think Clyde Lewis put his finger on it earlier. We're going to go to him in a moment. It's on our DNA, our ancient species, our incredible background, all the things we've been through. Obviously, the mainline history we're given is not the truth. Just like everything else we're told to lie. And so this is some language, some system that we, through ancestral memories that they've proven are real in all major developed species. The enemy has our owner's manual. They have our program. They are not more advanced than us. They're not better than us, but they're older than us or have a longer memory. And so they are able to manipulate us through the archetypes. And that's really the secret, and they don't want you to become aware of that. Well, I want you to become aware of that. So we're going to be talking about the Clyde Lewis here, and then we'll next hour get into all the big current, temporal, provable topics. But he brought us into the whole occult area today, and we're going to play a clip from a film came out over a decade ago, The Good Shepherd, with Matt Damon, produced by Robert De Niro, directed by Robert De Niro, that from people that I know that have been in Skull and Bones, and Charlotte Iserby, whose father and others were in it, and released the secret documents to Anthony Sutton. This is just the beginning. So we'll show you inside a ritual of Skull and Bones here in a moment. Then ABC News caught a little bit of footage from outside where death equals death, murder equals death, devil equals death, and then like simulating murder. And that's just kind of training the young ones for the real thing later. So it's more like a nursery school or an outer temple. Of course, any real Skull and Bones members or higher levels are probably killing people at about age 12. But this is more wimpy blue bloods are brought in to be trained before they go to the next level. Listen, if you don't fund us, you already know that, we'll be shut down. But you are funding us, so thank you. I need to be flooded with capital. We have great products at very low prices. So something like Knockout, that is an amazing combination of melatonin and L-tryptophan and valerian root and lemon balm and chamomile and a bunch of other things. It's the same amount as a bottle of melatonin that has the same dose. They're just putting $1 a product in it and selling it for 19 bucks. We put, $7, $8, $9, $10 a product in it and then sell it for 19 bucks. So it's available at InfoWarsStore.com right now. You get great products, just like our information's hardcore. You fund the operation. Sign up for auto ship, and then that way you'll just automatically get delivered it. You get 10% off. It had a 98% review 6 months ago, but the left all goes on to power reviews and does false reviews against us, and they brigade and organize as if you don't know how great the products are. It's so funny. It's only 91% review now. So sorry, only 91%. So InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. And it's discounted right now, but it's close to selling out. So is Brain Force Plus, our great nootropic. It's 40% off. Secret 12, BuzzFeed tested and said, well, it's pure B12, but here's the best in the country, this other brand. It was Mark Cuban's lab did it. What he said was the best in the country was what we private labeled. It's hilarious. And ours is $10 less. So a lot of our stuff's private label. Whatever the best is, we private label it and discount it. A lot of our stuff's proprietary and original. But it's all at InfoWarsStore.com. But I will end the special on Secret 12 and Brain Force this Sunday. It's got to end because more isn't coming into the middle of December. And at current rates, we'll sell out by November if we sell at the sales price. So InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. Now, again, I didn't know we'd get off into this whole occult situation, but that's really the root of it, and the elite are obsessed with it because they're psychopathic, or at least sociopathic, and they have given themselves over to the programming. So you and I look at it, looks like a bunch of gibberish because we're dialed into the whole universe. So I wouldn't say it's a good thing that a lot of folks are susceptible to the programming, but we have to learn what these symbols are and what their antecedents are to then see them and understand the larger attack that's taking place. And there's not just evil in the universe. Most of these symbols were ours, given by our creator. We're made the image of, by the way. That's a big deal. That's a little clue right there. These are symbols like the star, the pentacle, that's given to us. So it doesn't mean it's even evil. It's been expropriated, and then the system has hijacked it as a counterfeiter. Like the Bible says, the devil's a counterfeiter. So what Clyde Lewis's take on that, it's all about humiliation at that level, submitting, telling them all your hopes, all your dreams, and then later you try to clear yourself out so you can be possessed in a coffin, after 10 guys have, done a gangbang on you. And then after they've done that, then you're on to the next level. Clyde Lewis, why do you think this is going on? Again, why is there this obsession with this?
Well, there's power in sex magic, and some of the groups that, are well-known, like the OTO and other groups, of course, they practice sex magic. There's a lot of power in the orgasm. There's a lot of power in bringing that forward. In fact, if you want a sigil to be energized, usually people who are magicians or wizards or whomever, they'll tell you that the best way to power up a sigil or a symbol is to either do so through sexual intercourse or sodomy or even masturbation. So they know that the power of sex is very is appropriate for these sigils. And I know it's kind of uncomfortable to talk about this, but this is what goes on. I mean, you've seen movies like Eyes Wide Shut. You've seen, like I say, the robbing of virtue, young people, young women, young men becoming sexual objects. We know the Franklin scandal. We know of, the situation with those boys who were harmed. We know the stories of boys that are brought to the Bohemian Grove for this type of thing. I mean, trafficking and pedophilia, all of this is a part of it. And it's beyond the Pizzagate. It's beyond that. It's all of that. But, we become specific, and that's where the media has their heydays, because you become specific in one area, and they say, well, it's not happening here. But what they exclude is it's happening in a lot of places. And we see a lot of it being revealed and hinted at. But we never seem to find ourselves in a situation where we can nab the offenders, because the offenders are high-powered, highly paid individuals. And so, what the Me Too movement doesn't do is it doesn't identify some of the perpetrators who have actually harmed young children. We hear the women, but soon I think the next one will be the hysteria regarding children who may have said they've been harmed. But if you notice that most of the big players are never identified. And in the double standard we have, Kavanaugh being under the microscope, but never do we ever go back and say, well, maybe we should put Bill Clinton to the fire, and all the others who participate in the sexual rituals of Bohemian Grove.
And again, to be clear, Bohemian Grove, from my own research, is just kind of an outer court to see if you like it, to test you out. I mean, do you have any idea from your research, like, who the different occult groups are? I mean, we know the things they're into, but it turns into like a labyrinth of mental illness.
Well, I mean, in the beginning, if you remember going back in history, they had the Martinists. And the Martinists had no morals whatsoever. They were the secret society that did just that. It was sexual magic and things of that nature. Aleister Crowley, of course, was a sex magic provocateur, and he would raise from many of his rituals what is called the homunculus, which is a creature that does the bidding of its master many times. And that's exactly what the AI movement is all about, is creating the mechanical homunculus, or the slave or servant. And even Anton LaVey had said, the Black Pope of the Church of Satan, he said the future would be having a mechanical serf to do everything.
Exactly, it's an avatar.
Have an avatar that you could abuse and have sex with.
Back in 2 minutes with Clyde Lewis. I want to finish up with the occult, which the elite are obsessed with, and get into that avatar. Then we'll get into the world events and take your phone calls. I'll give that number out. Infowars.com, newswars.com. Spread those links. They're trying to censor us for a reason. They're scared of this broadcast. Well, Clyde Lewis, big syndicated radio host, obviously, on the Premier Radio Network, comes on every night right before George Norrie at 10 p.m. Central, is blowing me away with the occultism of the globalists and what they're into. And exactly, if you go back to the Jacobins, there was a whole left-hand path to imitate our revolution, but it was about a 9-day work week and enslaving everyone, but not telling the public it was slavery. It's kind of the modern model of liberalism, where they know we're all liberal at heart, or want to have open, free societies, and even if we're conservative, we care about freedom. They say they're all those virtuous things, but they're not. And then they're all about Lenin said this, and Anton LaVey said this. You'll have machines and avatars that work for you, and it'll be nothing but pure pleasure. But then when they get control, all they produce is pure hell. Where do you think we are at this point in history, Clyde Lewis?
Well, we are on the verge of pushing ourselves to the precipice of a new evolution. It's the new age, they call it. It's the age, the golden age. And they said in the golden age there would be a new man, and the new man would then lead us. And if you want to talk in religious Christian parlance, the new man that they're talking about, of course, is the Antichrist. And what's interesting about Baal, and what's interesting about the rule of Baal is quite simply, and the resurrection of Baal is quite simply, the resurrection of the spirit of the Antichrist. So when they bring the arch to Washington, D.C. Mall, and they erect it, they say it's about freedom and liberty. No, it's about the Antichrist and what the Antichrist stands for. And I've noticed that there have been so many stories as of late which would indicate that whoever is behind this, they're certainly either using symbols and signs of the eschaton to bring people into hysteria, or we're seeing a fulfillment of what we read in the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel. And this is something that, of course, most Christians, if they're awake, know that this is simply some signs of the times that need to be addressed. If not, this is certainly a counterfeit attempt at trying to nudge God into the apocalypse. And the most cynical thing mankind can do is to fake his own prophecies, and also to fake his own second coming. So if this is going on, that is the most diabolical thing I think the elite can do, is to actually fool people into believing that the power relies in mankind and their ability to become more like machines rather than becoming more human.
Electrify your day with Secret 12. It's like lightning in a bottle. We all have days in which we just can't seem to perform at the level we'd like to. Infowars Live Secret 12 is designed to naturally energize your body and mind with 2 great tasting and super high quality forms of vitamin B12. Proper vitamin and nutrient intake is essential to keep your body functioning at optimum levels. The reality is, it's hard to take in the proper amount of vitamins we need each day with our modern diets. Secret 12 by Infowars Live is an easy way to naturally upgrade your vitamin B12 intake and support your body's natural systems. It pairs 2 forms of vitamin B12 into one explosive formula. Vitamin B12 supports healthy energy levels through red blood cell formation and aiding in the body's natural processes, but it also assists with many other functions of the body. Electrify your mind and body and take your health to the next level. Experience the power of Secret 12 at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.